All right, folks, what do you say? A Wednesday night in-game live right here on SportsGrid. Great to be with all of you. Packed Major League Baseball board that's had a couple of games finish up already. Plenty more ongoing and still, of course, some to come. Kevin Walsh here with Tom Vecchio tonight. Tom will be joining us here on In-Game Live over the next three evenings, which I'm really excited about here. Tom, excited to not just follow the Major League Baseball card, the WNBA slate, but, of course, the NFL and its rapid approach, which, of course, is going to involve some preseason action for us pretty soon.
Yeah, we got a lot going on. Like you said, we got a couple games, baseball games already in the books. We have some that have just started. We already got runs on the board, some Nerfies and Yurfies cashing in there. We got a couple more games coming up. And then, like you said, with the NFL fast approaching, it seems that we're getting news. It's not every other day. You're not even every day. Like, we're getting injuries, significant injury news, like every other hour at this point, which is absolutely crazy. There's a ton to dive into, and like you said, the preseason games coming up later in the week, which we'll of course be touching on as those days come later in the week.
Yeah, the injuries in the National Football League continue. This time it does not hit the NFC South, but it hits the AFC South with Jaden Higgins down for the year with a torn ACL, a Houston Texans team that is definitely getting some buzz in terms of, an AFC. I don't even know if Sleeper might be a little strong. A division favorite here in Houston getting some real buzz that they could represent this conference in this coming Super Bowl. We'll talk more about Houston. We'll talk about the breaking news out of Tampa Bay. Vita Vea signs that extension, which I think pretty quickly you could tell was the reason behind that trade request. So I don't think that's too stunning a resolution there. But I want to start with the Major League Baseball board right now. We have a couple of games that are live and a couple of games that I'm involved with here, Tom. One of them is scoreless. That's the Reds and the Cardinals. Was able to get a minus 128 number on Cincinnati. I thought that was pretty kind with Chase Burns getting the baseball against Liberatore. And then I did play the Yankees here, who are down 1-0, but threatening now in the top of the second against Baltimore. That's a Will Warren start going up against Bassett, who's been pretty bad for Baltimore.
Yeah, some interesting games. The Reds are always a fun team to back, especially when Chase Burns is on the mound against what I'm always going to call a middling Cardinals team. I know Cardinals can go through these hot stretches, but ultimately they're not a team that I like to back because I don't think their pitchers were good. Their lineup can certainly be exciting at times, but Chase Burns is by far the better pitcher in that matchup. I do have some action to start with Parker Messick under 6.5 strikeouts going up against the Giants, which is off to a great start because he's got 3 through 2. Messick's a really good pitcher, but he also is a pitcher that pitches to contact. And we see his strikeout rate fluctuating wildly over his last 10, 15 games. And I know the Giants are a horrible team. I was pretty high on them coming into this year, and I was just totally wrong about that. They're still a team that can not strike out too much. They're a middle-of-the-road team. They're not going to provide any amount of offense. But Messick looking at under 6.5, and then I got to play for a Royals game that we have coming up in just a little bit.
Yeah, we will get to a Kansas City Sacramento game. We'll talk a little Milwaukee, Seattle, 22-0 yesterday. The Brewers beating the Seattle Mariners. This Mariner team kind of, having just one of the more pathetic seasons relative to expectations. The Mets have been bad for so long now. They've almost flown under the radar. I think why Seattle feels so embarrassing is this is a team who was seen as a legitimate threat to win the American League a month ago through the odds. And the idea was the staff. That's all I've heard about the Seattle Mariners core for half a decade. And have they ever lived up to it? I guess last season they did make a run to the ALCS, so I can't pretend that didn't happen. Played a Game 7, but that was almost a genie, in a bottle type of year, right? Like that season wasn't really defined by their staff as much as it was defined by the single most disappointing player in Major League Baseball this year in Cal Raleigh.
And what I would say about Seattle is, like, to your point, the pitching staff is the thing that they've always leaned on. And I said it last year going into the postseason. I said if there's any AL team that can go toe to toe with the Dodgers and keep that lineup in check, it would be the Mariners. And I really thought the Mariners would give them a run for their money because of that pitching staff. But, it's like they peaked too early kind of thing. It's like they peaked last year, and the come down from that is really, really low. Like the floor for them, we should have seen this coming into the season, that if you don't get magical seasons out of Cal Raleigh and out of Julio Rodriguez, and you have health stay on your side, the floor for the Mariners is really, really low on offense, because they had to do things at the trade deadline last year to bring in Josh Naylor to remedy a horrible offense. So when the pendulum swings to the other side and you're on the bad side of variance, as the Mariners are this year, the offense was terrible to begin with. Now it's going to be atrocious. Doesn't matter how good that pitching staff is, or theoretically could be. Doesn't matter all these top prospects that you have that you're paying before they get to the MLB level. If they don't produce and they don't take that next step, the offense is just non-existent, which, as we've seen it to come to fruition this year.
Likely they'll fire Dan Wilson this offseason as well. But again, I would, if I were Dan Wilson, I'm like, guys, what's the rush? We're not playing baseball next year anyway. Why start up any type of severance package when you don't have to? I actually, I say all that to say I am playing the Mariners on the money line tonight. Logan Gilbert is still a higher pedigree pitcher than Dustin May. Obviously, the Brewers are a much, much, much better baseball team, but I'm getting a nice plus price here. Off the 22-0, I don't think it hurts. If there were any motivation in the world for this Seattle team, this would be it. So I'm taking a stab here tonight on a plus price on Logan Gilbert. Despite Seattle's struggles, there's not, we don't see plus prices on Logan Gilbert, Tom, all that often.
No, and I think objectively, if you were to just throw out yesterday's results, they never happened. This was game one of the series. You'd say, okay, Gilbert on the road, it's a decent enough park that's somewhat equivalent to Safeco or T-Mobile or whatever it's called at this point up in Seattle. It's not the Kingdome anymore, I know that. But Gilbert at plus money, if he can navigate the first few guys in that lineup, as I have said all year on Pro Baseball Today, the bottom portion of the Brewers lineup isn't good. And it's great that they added another pitcher, but that's not what they needed at the deadline. They needed to add a hitter to go toe-to-toe with the Braves and the Dodgers in the NL. So if Gilbert can manage that and get to the bottom portion of the lineup and with one or two runs, I'll take Logan Gilbert at a plus place just objectively, regardless of yesterday's results.
Let's just put him on the board then, Tom, here. We mentioned what we have live. What do you have coming up in this Kansas City matchup hosting Jeffrey Springs getting the baseball here? I thought earlier today this was supposed to be Gage Jump, so that kind of snuck by me. What are you seeing here in this matchup?
So the Athletics are activating Jeff Springs off of the IL, therefore pushing Gage Jump back a day. But Bobby Witt 2+ total bases at -115. I did look to the HRR market, hit run RBI, which is one of my favorite markets. But of course, a player like Bobby Witt, if he's 2+ total bases at -115, his HRR market for 2+ is always going to be at that 175, 180 price, which is obviously significantly different. But you give me Bobby Witt against this type of pitching staff, regardless of Jeff Springs, we get a horrible, horrible bullpen from the Athletics, which will come into play at some point. You give me near even money on Bobby Witt, I'm going to take it.
Yeah, Bobby is a part. Man, again, we talk about disappointing seasons, man. Bobby to a degree, yes, but Kansas City, man. This was this trendy AL contender who have been nothing but all season long. We'll take our first break. We'll come right back, talk about the rest of this Major League Baseball board on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the universe, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Okay, guys, live with you right here on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh, Tom Vecchio. Following your baseball board, we're going to go to extras here in Boston, Tom. Let's talk a little extra innings betting. It's one of my favorite things to do. We do it quite a bit here when the opportunity does arise on this show. They're going to start it off with the D-backs at a plus price, which is interesting here. Where are we in the order right now? So we're going to go 4, 5, 6 for Arizona. When Boston comes up, let's see, Rafaela just got that last out. So we're going to go 3, 4, 5.
Yep.
Do you like over 12.5, minus 110? Do you like the Boston price? What catches your eye?
Honestly,
hate the over. Really?
You don't hate the over. Okay. You know, just based on...
Talk it out with me. Talk it out with me.
So, actually, wait, hang on. They did use Chapman already. All right, so they did use Chapman already for the Red Sox. I would take the Diamondbacks or the over at that point. So we're getting one of the better higher leverage relievers off the board. You know, you can't bring him back for the Red Sox, so I would take the plus money with the Diamondbacks. And because he's out, therefore the bullpen is just objectively weaker. We could take that over.
So your thought initially though was Chapman's going to be available. That's going to hurt us trying to get runs here, right?
Correct. But now that he's out and they're bringing in, I don't know who they're actually going to bring in now. Giovanni Moran for the Red Sox, if he's going to be coming in, I believe so.
The argument against the over, to me, is we're not getting there without Arizona scoring, right? Otherwise, we need a walk-off 3-run shot from Boston. So are we better off just playing the plus price on Arizona?
Right. That's what I would say. I would say you could take it's up to plus 125. Gabby Moreno's up on second. They're coming back now. I would take the plus money price because if one thing happens and it leads to the over, it does mean the Diamondbacks are probably live to win outside of a 3-run shot, to your point.
But the thing is I actually really believe I would be very surprised if Boston didn't score.
Yeah.
So maybe, and listen, there's nothing wrong with this. Maybe we let this first at bat go here, and see where that puts us, right?
Okay.
If Perdomo pushes the runner over, that's fine, right? I don't know how they're gonna adjust. So, and if Perdomo gets out, that'll throw things a little bit, though, right? Like if he goes down.
How do you normally approach extra innings? How do you normally do it? Or is it just totally situational? Because when they instituted the the runner on second to start extra innings a couple years ago, I had this thought. I was like, what if you just played the plus money price on the underdog every time? Like they have the advantage right away. What if you just play that? Would you, over large enough sample size, would you come out net positive because you're getting plus money every single time that you make the bet? Because someone's always going to be plus money to start extras.
Yeah, I think that is very possible. So Perdomo bunted, by the way. He bunted the runner over to bring it up to Arenado.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm actually at now. Okay, so to your question, Tom, it's very situational for me. I do not reject your overarching theory of should I just grab the dog each time? We've seen, because Gabe and I will do this quite a bit, in a world where Arizona doesn't score, I actually think Arizona becomes a tempting bet. You'll get plus 350, 4-1. You get through the half inning. You'll be able to get out of it and do damage that way if need be. But the reason why is because the swings are so violent, right? I mean, baseball, there's always movement, but it's so violent here. I'm now a little interested because I said to you, I think the number one thing I feel is Boston will score. I'm curious if this is 6-5 Arizona, what options do we get price-wise, right? Do we get 2-1 Boston? I'm interested. Does that 12.5 go to even money? I'm interested. I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. If Arenado gets out here, that does, we won't get a good Boston number, but that's okay.
I just saw it drop to 11.5 total. So, if you were interested in, the over 12.5, thinking, okay, Arizona's got to be on the boards, like we got that extra run now. It was a little bit at minus 130, but it was only 1 out. And as far as I'm seeing, Arenado is still up. Now, can't say that's the case anymore with some action going on. I see this jumping up
so
all the way to...
Arenado got a base hit and drove that run in.
Yep.
So I'm seeing a 13.5. Yeah, but not like plus one, like 2-1 juice. That does nothing for me. So they're not going to give us a good number on 12.5 with the run plating?
No, 6-5, and it's minus 250 for under 13.5, which is crazy.
What was that?
I see under, because it's 6-5 now. Arizona scored, right? Arenado got the single. I'm seeing the line at 13.5. It's minus 240 for under 13.5 runs.
Right, but what I want to know is, can I get over 12.5? And it doesn't look like heading anywhere.
Yeah, you want an alt live line? That I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know. I mean, I'm a little thrown off as to why they felt the need to go to this 13.5, plus number everywhere. Do you agree with me that Boston will score? Like, is that how you're seeing this right now?
I think so. I mean, Boston's at plus 150, and do they tie this up? Like, they have the heart of the lineup coming up. This is what you want to see.
Yeah.
And so I am fine with it. And we are getting a spent Diamondbacks bullpen. I don't know if they're going to bring in or keep in Loaizaga for a second inning as he closed out the ninth. I don't know if they're going to keep him in. He only threw 9 pitches. So I don't know if they're warming someone up. They really haven't showed too much on at least the Sox broadcast that I'm watching here. But Red Sox scoring again is not going to surprise me with the heart of their lineup coming up.
Yeah, let's see. Tawa's 3-0 here. He gets on base with a walk. We could reasonably get it 2-1, right?
Right.
We like it as much at 7-5. We're going to keep following this here, guys. It's in-game live. We're looking to get in the mix. Red Sox, Diamondbacks. Quick break on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, guys, in-game live back at the right here on SportsGrid. We're kind of locked in, trying to find some value in Boston, Arizona. We've not done anything since we left you, but what we've seen is a plus 250 pop on Boston. Why? Bases are loaded. The Red Sox right now struggling to throw strikes, but I'm not mad at that, Tom. Like, they can get out of this, in my opinion. I'm not trying to be like foolish or you know what I mean? Like, the 8 hitter's up. This is followed by the 9 hitter. I think this is a pretty decent spot and a pretty good price on Boston here. If this thing, we've seen what the number is. If this is going to go 6-5, we're gonna get like plus 120. And even if we don't get it at 6-5, if it's 7-5, I think we can get there. Look, if it's 8-5, it's a really bad bet, but I just placed it at plus 250. I took the Red Sox money line.
Yeah, I think this is the way to go about it. Like things have not gone well for the Red Sox in terms of real baseball, but we have a significantly different price compared to where we were when extra innings started. The walks are starting to pile up, like 240, 250 around there. I think that's a fine price to jump in. If they can get out of this, there's also one out already, Kev. So we are dealing with a ground ball gets them out of the inning, and that 240 price is going to change to what? They'll still be underdogs heading to the bottom of the 10th down by 1, but what would that price be?
I think plus 120 at 6-5.
Okay.
That's what I think. I don't think it'll be short. I don't think it'll be. You think it'll be a little bit longer?
Yeah, I would hope so. I would hope we get a little bit longer of a price at plus 140 or plus 150. I think that's where it should be. Does that mean that's where the books are going to put it? No, we never get an actual that real number.
Well, because when Arenado made the got the base hit, Tom, it went to. That's when they flipped away from being favorites, right? And I mean, I think we were sitting around plus 130-ish. So, like, to me, if they get out of this, like we said, if the books agree with us, hey, Boston are going to score, right? Like, we're in a decent spot. Boston know they're playing for the run, right? They're not, the approach could be a little bit better. We love the heart of the order up. So here's the deal. And I'm now, like, I pulled up the live stream. This guy's got to throw strikes, man. Like, I know it's easier said than done, but when you walk 2 in a row, I don't know. Like, if I were a pitcher and I'm not, and it's probably a good thing, I would be far more likely to give up a grand slam than walk 3 straight guys. Like, I would just groove one down the middle. And he throws one of the worst pitches of my entire life.
I know. And he actually did walk it. And the Red Sox are up to plus 700, which is crazy.
I don't mean to be nuts, but I have to bet that.
Right. If you love them at 240, which is where I got them in, you're going to love them at 700. It's that simple. That's how math works. But 7 to 5. I
don't actually understand the price.
The total has jumped up to 14.5, and we're dealing a minus 174 price on that. So if you got in at over 11.5 when it did drop down there just slightly over 11.5.
What just happened? How quickly did whatever jabroni that just came up get out? This is down to plus 320.
Ryan Walsh, one of their top prospects.
This guy just grounded into a double play before we clipped 7-1. You've got to be kidding me.
No, it's all the way back down to plus 320. So it's a 5-4-3 double play around the horn. Red Sox get out of it. It's 7-5. We got a plus 320 price on that.
That's infuriating.
It is. And this is part of it. I mean, objectively, this is what live betting is for. And part of the excitement of live betting is when you're trying to watch what's happening on the sports book. You know, it's a split second behind what's actually happening in the real game. A 7-1 price was hung out there for, I don't even want to say 60 seconds. I don't even know if it was that long. And now we're down to plus 320. The total's off the board. And it was 13.5, 14.5, but it's 7-5 going bottom 10. And I want to know who the Diamondbacks are bringing in to pitch. Are they going to keep Loaizaga in there, who only threw 9 pitches in the bottom of the 9th?
I mean, that is so incredibly frustrating. I understand we're on delay. I didn't think it was going to be that violent of a delay that this guy, not even on the first pitch of the at-bat, by the way, would ground into a double play before we could click a great 7-1 price. I still think Boston could win this game. And I think what's fascinating is they won't unlock this total. Because I actually be a little interested in playing the 12.5 at minus 200, but it doesn't look like we're going to get that either. All right, guys, we'll be right back. Red Sox, be back.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Guys, back to the right here on SportsGrid. We're following along with this Red Sox D-backs game. We've really locked in here, trying to, make some money in extra innings. I think we saw the top of the market. We saw the value in the top of the market. I wasn't able to get I don't know if Tom, were you able to hit the 7-1 at any point?
I was not. I got it at, I think it was 240. It dropped a smidge after 250. We got another, 240. We got another out for them. So it's 2 outs now, bottom 10. They did get the run in.
Though.
Yeah, so Willie Abreu grounded out, moved the runner from second to third.
Yeah. The initial 12.5 was a winner if you played it.
Yeah, it is. So it's 7-6. There's 2 outs. Caleb Durbin, who was 0 of 4 today, is up the plate.
Yeah, I mean, if he hits a home run, that'd be nice, but it would be against the grain now for us to win this bet, right? If he does, cool, but we'll see.
We have had some other homers in case people are betting those today. We got a Ben Rice homer, Alejandro Kirk homered for the Blue Jays, Yandy Diaz homered for Tampa. So, Luis Arias homered for Philly against his former team. So the ball's flying, at least in some places. And, can the Sox eke across one more? Nope. We got an out already. Couldn't even get through this segment with them keeping the game alive. Caleb Durbin out. Diamondbacks win the game 7-6. Big win for them. They are in the heart of an NL wildcard race. They really needed this.
Yeah, the wildcard races are both pretty interesting. We talk about it pretty regularly on this show. Believe it or not, often in the American League through the lens of the Toronto Blue Jays are at the heart of that discussion. Let me start though in the National League, since you mentioned that Diamondbacks win, one they needed to stop a 3-game losing streak. Where do you stand right now on the NL wildcard race? Are you a believer in, St. Louis or Miami, who would be well into playoff positioning had they, if they were American League teams at those records, but right now are, multi-games back here?
I would say the Cards and the Marlins are out. Maybe they can cause some trouble for the opposing teams, and I would say namely the Marlins and the Phillies. Marlins causing trouble for the Phillies, but I think it really just does come down to Cubs locked into their spot. I still think that the division's not all said and done in the NL Central. The Cubs and the Brewers have, I believe it's 7 more games left. Definitely 6. They have 6 or 7 games left coming up against each other. And if the Cubs can take 4 of those 7, well, they're going to cut that division lead right down. It's going to be a lot closer than you think. It's going to be Phillies, Padres, Diamondbacks. I think it's those 3. This isn't some hot take. I know that. I think it's come down to them. The Padres, for how hot they have been, it's tough to fade them. I will say there's just going to be natural attrition going up against the Diamondbacks and going up against the Dodgers X amount of times to close out the last 6 weeks, which does present a bit of difficulty compared to the Phillies, who get to play the Nats and the Mets. So I think the Phillies are going to be locked in. It's not going to be pretty, but they'll get there.
Yeah, I view Philly as a team who could really threaten to win the NL because there is a lot of pedigree. They do have a 1-2 at the top of that rotation that you'll feel good about against anybody, but they are a tier below. I think what throws me a little bit here with San Diego is there's nothing about the rotation that's super exciting, but we all know they have the best bullpen, bar none, just because. I mean, again, if Mason Miller's, you might as well just sit down, right? If Mason Miller ever gets out there, Marjan's obviously been great for this team as well. Can this lineup produce consistently is a really, really big question. Fernando Tatis with catch of the year, robbing that grand slam off of, Francisco Lindor was awesome. When you think about, threats, Tom, to the Dodgers, Milwaukee, Atlanta, how shocked would you be if the NL was represented by someone other than those 3 teams?
Other than Dodgers, Brewers, Braves,
Yeah.
I would be stunned. I as I've said, across pro baseball today, I believe the pecking order in the NL in order is Dodgers in the tier of their own. I put the Brewers and the Braves in the same tier, and I honestly want to put the Braves ahead of the Brewers. And it's not based on the pitching staff. We know that. The lineup for the Braves is great. Like, we are looking at a lineup on a daily basis that has 7 or 8 hitters that can go deep. And that's why I've said that you need a lineup that can go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. The Braves do not have the pitching staff that the Brewers have. We know that. After that, it would be Phillies and then Padres as really the only contenders. If the Padres are able to supersede those 3 teams, I would be stunned. Just absolutely stunned. Now, I believe the Phillies, if they have the momentum, and to your point, the pedigree, not just the 1-2, but you add in Jesus Luzardo as that third starter. Now we have a lineup when they're hot that can go toe-to-toe with any other team, and a 3-man rotation that you want in the postseason.
Yeah, so I completely agree with you in terms of the if it was somebody other than the big 3, I'd be stunned. I think I'm higher on Milwaukee than you. First of all, the Brewers last year were the best team in baseball regular season and did play in the NLCS. Now, we all know what happened. They got there, but did they really, right? They did not show up at all. They scored 1 run in all 4 games, being swept out of that series. It was embarrassing. It was obviously like the best version possible of the Dodgers and what that pitching staff could be. It was all of that. And I'm very careful in ever dismissing the Dodgers. But I do think this current version of LA is very far removed from what we expected them to be. Now, they still, for the first time in, I don't know, all year, they don't lead baseball in run differential, it feels like, because the Brewers just won a game by a gazillion, right? So that, that really extended that lead. I understand that the Dodgers are just a few games back when you talk about record, but the Kyle Tucker stuff is loud and real. The rotation today might not be the rotation tomorrow. That goes both directions. Maybe Ohtani and Glass now are throwing. Yeah, maybe Skubal's not pitching in the postseason. That would surprise not me. I'll tell you that much. And I think where we're at with the Dodgers is, and I think I'm very confident in saying this, they're a terrible bet at plus 160. Doesn't mean they can't win the World Series. That would be a bad take. But if you're betting the Dodgers right now, who are on track to not even get a round 1 bye, I think that is a really, really bad investment in the World Series market.
Right. And, Kevin, we disagree on a lot, but we also agree on a lot. And when we both agree so much of the time on, we're like, wow, this is such a terrible price on a team, or it's a terrible way to view it, or it's whatever it is. And of course, a 160 or 170 price on the Dodgers is insane. And it's a terrible bet because there are teams with them. The path for them to get to the NLCS is them not having home field. The path to them to win the NLCS is difficult. And as I say, if you want to bet on the Dodgers, bet them to beat the Brewers in the NLCS. Bet them to beat the Rays in the World Series. There are better ways to go about it rather than just a plus 160 price, because that's crazy.
We're going to update the live board. We'll mention the live matchup between the Mystics and the Tempo as well.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, guys, honestly, bad job out of me not mentioning Mystics tempo earlier. And the reason why is I didn't bet this game. The reason it's a bad job out of me, did you?
Yeah. Sonia Citron over 8.5 rebounds plus assists.
All right, well, you're on your way. 3 early. Love that for you. The Toronto tempo, though, really, really hooked it up last night. Game of the year. A really... Gosh, if I could be so bold, a really poorly booked total in Indiana, Toronto, a closing number of 190.5, went over by 6 points. You might think, hold on a second, you're going at a game that went over by 6 points, saying it was a poorly booked. Yes, I am. I am saying that. A total like that high, the idea is you need a clean ride. We didn't really get one. You need everything to go right. The tempo shot 40%, under 40% from the field. Kelsey Mitchell, who was the best player on the court, left the game early. It wasn't a clean ride. The total should have been higher. It went over, and they will play again before this season's out, a month from now, and I'm going to look to be locked in again. So shout out the tempo, shout out the fever. What a total. Tom locked in tonight on Sonia Citron over that rebound and assist number at 8.5. It's a Mystics team who are trending in the right direction. They, I think, really kind of slammed the door on, will any of these teams that look like they're in the playoffs get caught? If you look right now, this league has 8 teams above 500. That's who's going to be in the playoffs. Dallas is at 20-16. Portland's at 15-20. That's your gap. Mystics have actually jumped up on Dallas despite their negative point differential. They've been playing much better basketball. I think the difficult thing right now, when you try and evaluate the WNBA, if you are looking for a piece of non-Lynx option. If you like the Lynx, nothing matters because they're going to be the 1 seed and they're just going to roll everybody in your mind. If you're looking for someone else, this bracket is very tight, okay? The gap between the Fever and the Mystics is 3 games. The gap between the Fever and the Liberty is a game and a half. So this is a tight race here, Tom. I don't know if you're someone involved in a WNBA futures market or you've considered being involved with a WNBA futures market. I preseason played Atlanta to win the title. They had a statement win last night at Vegas, which was nice to see. But I can't say I feel I don't know. I don't really think anybody should feel amazing about a WNBA title bet unless you bet Minnesota preseason.
I'm, betting it on a game by game basis here and there. The only team that I'd be looking to back strictly, and this is just having a good number, would be Golden State. And, tonight's game is going to be a proving point for them. I like teams that can play defense. Like it's simple as that, especially when it comes to the postseason. This is clearly a team that doesn't have a ton of experience, as a recent expansion team. But if you give me a good price on a good defensive team come the postseason, I'll be interested in it. So the value that we get from them and 9.5 compared to where the other teams are and essentially what we have in terms of tiers and pricing, that's the spot that I would look to back.
Golden State tonight have a really big game on their hands. They are currently 0-5 against Minnesota and Las Vegas. They're going to play Minnesota, okay, in a tight little window here. They're going to host them, okay, and then less than a week, they're going to go to them. You got to think to yourself, hey, we got it. We have to get one of these. Confidence, right? Maybe it's tonight. I'm not sure. I played the over. I actually got a bad number. People are buying under. I get that. I think people are buying under probably, if this is the game the Valkyries are going to get, they're going to have to play it to the under. These teams have played twice, once over this number once under this number, pretty smoothly as well. I like points here tonight at 163.5. It's down to 161.5, so it's a better number than I got. Both of these teams are on nice win streaks right now. 4 straight for Minnesota, 6 straight for Golden State. And, the issue for me with the Lynx is it took me forever to accept how much better they were than the rest of the league. And by the time that happened, we're laying a number at -110 to win the championship. I don't really want to do that. I think, here's the thing. It's not going to get much higher than -110 before the postseason begins. So let me see how the bracket falls. Do they avoid Indiana? Does Indiana end up on that, that 2-3 line? Do they avoid Las Vegas? Do they avoid Atlanta? Right? What's the path? Where do the Liberty fall? Obviously, that was your preseason title favorite. I might be willing. There's no reason at -110 in my eyes, Tom. It's funny, didn't you just say the Dodgers were a bad bet? Yeah, there's like a year left, it feels like, from when that Dodgers ticket will cash, right? And you could get more up and down nature in baseball than you do in the WNBA. What I'm telling you is, a month from now, the WNBA's regular season will be going on. I'm not betting Minnesota now, and I really don't think they're going to be -150 before the playoffs start. If, unfortunately, an injury were to occur, it might go the other direction. So I think the Lynx are the best team. I might be willing to bet them at the price, but not for a month from now, Tom.
And that's fair. And that comes down to any other market or any market that you're evaluating at a price and at a given time and what needs to occur. To me, I always want to see, to your point, where the bracket shakes out and the path for that team to get there. Because if it's truly a clean path for them and them being just clearly a step ahead of everyone else, then you can justify it, but you don't have to make that decision right now. And it's as simple as that. You can be ready to jump on it, but you don't have to do it right now knowing that there's time left.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I'd love to check in with Tom about Paul Skeens, who his team won today. Yeah, that's about it in terms of the positive notes.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, guys, Paul Skeens awful at baseball. That's a lot of the conversation right now in the East. His ERA is nearly a 4. There's concerns over his weight. He's not throwing 90 pitches in games anymore. The vibes are awful. They finally won a game he started. He went 4 1/3. Where are you at, Tom? Where are you at on Paul Skeens?
It's really tough to say. I would chalk this up to there's some mechanical issue with him, and like I would almost want to say it's like, oh, this is a bad year or a bad stretch rather than a sign of bad things to come. There are underlying metrics that suggest he's getting a little bit unlucky. There are underlying metrics to suggest that, you know, there are concerning things with the, you know, average fastball velocity dipping and just his overall velocity of pitches for all of them dropping down. There's some people that are alluding to the fact that maybe Paul Skeens is doing this intentionally to just ease off the gas and trying to preserve his arm and just ease off the workload, the innings. They're trying to just scale things back. Again, there are things that suggest that he's getting unlucky. You know, last year, his left on base percentage in the year before was at 82 and 85%, which is really strong. That's where we see Jacob Mizorowski. That's where we see Chris Sanchez. That's where we see the best pitchers in the league. This year, it's at 67%, which is incredible, which is obviously like that's not sustainable. His BABIP is much higher this year than it was. Like, there are so many different factors that are pulling in all different directions that I could just hone in on the ones that I want to make the argument for A or want to make the argument for B that I honestly don't know. I want to say that he's having a mechanical issue right now that's causing these issues combined with the team scaling back his innings on purpose.
So I don't know if I like mechanical issue. I don't know if I like that. Like, if I'm a Pirates fan, what am I rooting for? I think it's weight. I think you're rooting for he got a bit, you know, a little out of shape, and it's messed with him. I'm also open to the curse of the WBC. Very open to that. I mean, it feels like almost no. I don't know who was at the WBC who's just like crushing it. I guess maybe that everybody was there, so that like PCA was there. I guess that's fair, right? I don't think Jordan was, which is hilarious. Judge hurt.
No.
Ohtani's not playing at his level, period, and kind of hurt. Skubal got hurt and also wasn't really there. Skeens, whatever this is. Soto hurt. Tatis forgot how to hit home runs. Vlad Jr. forgot how to hit home runs.
And hurt.
Cal Raleigh's the worst player in baseball. And should give back his MVP votes.
Jackson Churrio's been fine.
Churio missed a couple of games. So
he's been fine.
Cheating.
Logan Webb's been fine.
Maybe there's just no good baseball players anymore. I mean, I'm interested in that. I'm open to that. I'm open to it.
So the thing I would say about Skeens is there's a lot in his, like he's having in some areas he's having a better year this year than he was, and some of the things that suggest he's having the exact same year than he is having compared to last year. And again, this would be cherry picking stats for the purpose of making the argument. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I'm saying
I think the velocity thing is where a lot of the panic now feels beyond justified,
yes,
right? Like you were the first person I've ever heard say ERA is a terrible stat. So fine, let's not like he's not throwing as hard as he used to.
Right. But what he did last year, again, if I'm cherry picking stats, last year compared to this year, like last year he had a 3.10 Sierra, which is skill interactive ERA, which is a better indicator compared to ERA. This year, his Sierra is 3.10. It's exactly the same. This year, his strikeout rate is a touch higher than it was last year. Last year, it's 29.5. This year, it's at 30% even. It's like exactly the same. He's still under 1 home run per 9. So there are good things that Paul Skeens is doing. There's also some bad things. And if we combine those bad things with the dip in velocity, that's where people are going to make the argument that saying like something's actually wrong with Paul Skeens when I can pick off just as many stats to say that Paul Skeens is totally fine. But optically, it doesn't look like he's totally fine.
Also, he's not, right?
He's
like,
not,
I don't think,
and I agree with that.
Yeah. I appreciate, I've always appreciated actually like the I'll argue anything, right? But it would be as if I were like, LeBron can still jump as high as he used to when he was a Cav, when he was like in his 3rd season. Like, what? It's like, no, he can't. I could argue it. It's like, you could be wrong though, right? Let's update your live baseball board.
So he can still jump, yes.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
In-game live, joining you on a Wednesday night with some breaking news out of the NBA with Peyton Watson and his saga finally coming to an end. He is now a Cleveland Cavalier. The Clippers involved here take back Max Strus, and the Nuggets return for an exciting young piece whose injury last year certainly capped their ceiling at just 23. He'll be 24 at the start of the regular season. They get back an unprotected first-round pick from Cleveland in 2031 and a second-round pick. Who cares? Watson's going to get a 4-year, $88 million deal with Cleveland. It's going to get a player option, trade kicker again, yada, yada, yada. Kevin Walsh along with Tom Vecchio. This is kind of the everybody loses thing. Like, realistically, for Cleveland, you had to do something. But what you wanted was LeBron. He made that Sixers decision. You had to find a pivot. But it's like tripling down on a core that I think a lot of people were expecting some moves to be made on. And now they'll run out a Harden, Spida, Watson, Mobley, Allen 5, which is a talented 5. There's no doubt about that. I still really wonder if Cleveland would have won the LeBron sweepstakes if they were willing to make some deals that he wanted. The reports say that that's not the case. Okay. I'm not sure I buy that. I think it's possible that if they were the team who traded for Jaylen Brown, LeBron might have been a Cleveland Cavalier. And based on the prices of the Sixers and the Cavs would be in a better position to win if they had LeBron and Jaylen Brown, period. That's just the stone cold reality of it. Now, you could say Mobley would have, Boston would have asked for Mobley. I don't really know where Boston would have got off asking for Mobley when you could look at the actual return they got for Jaylen Brown. So maybe that deal doesn't materialize. So that's kind of step one of why I say this is almost everybody doesn't feel great about it thing. Because then there's the Denver side of it. The Denver Nuggets have one of the very best players in the league. I think it's actually quite disrespectful to the status to still call him the best player in the league. I'd like for the best player in the league to maybe occasionally show up in the conference finals. That'd be nice. You know what I mean? Instead of getting sent home by Rudy Gobert again and again and again and again and again, maybe. But one of the best players in the league in his prime, and they're finding ways to save against the cap because they put their backs up against the wall. And it's a Denver Nuggets team who last year had this exciting offseason, and people thought it was going to lead to more for Denver. And instead they got completely jumped by the San Antonio Spurs, had a somewhat unhealthy season, and have responded by doing absolutely nothing this summer. Their starting 5 is the same. Their bench is now worse. So we got a first-round pick. Great. What's that for? When Jokic leaves? I don't really know. It's a very tough spot Denver finds themselves in. I think these are two teams that really, really, really want to go on deep runs next year. And I'm not entirely sure people will be slotting them in as top 4 teams inside their own conferences.
Yeah, immediate reaction seeing this is, like, to what end? It's like you make the trade, it's like, congrats, but to what end? Like, does this make the Cavs substantially better? Does this put them over the hump and making them a top 3 team in the conference? No. And the odds are the same. We're going to see New York, Philly, Boston as being those top 3 teams. Does this put them over the hump? No. To Denver and really anyone else in the Western Conference, it's like we know all of those teams are staring up at the mountain that the OKC Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs are. So does this put them in a position to take down one of those 2 giants? I would say no. Like, to what end? Like, why are you doing this? So again, and if it's solely just a cap thing, then there are some issues for Denver, because if you are weakening the product that you have on court, not from a viewership perspective, but the actual fundamentals of the team, weakening that, when you still have to take down these other two giants, you're doing it for just the cap purposes, which isn't a good enough reason. And LA, the picks, this, that, I think, whatever it is, sure, do whatever you got to do. That's fine. No one's expecting much from the Clippers. This is just to clarify. This is the Clippers trade, not the LA Lakers. LA Clippers make this trade. But I just see this as like lateral moves for both teams. It's like you bring in a player. I think Cavs fans can be excited about him. Adding Watson, like this is a fun player to have on the roster, but it doesn't make them dramatically better.
I agree with that. For Cleveland, like again, it's a nice roster, but the vibes are now. Maybe they'll have the nobody believes in us stuff. Like they were in a conference finals last year. I don't want to be wildly dismissive of Cleveland. They needed to do something. I'm just not sure this was that something. So I'm not sitting here saying that Cleveland have made a poor decision. $22 million a year for Watson is something I think that they're very happy to pay. Right? I don't think that's going to be, I don't think that is going to be something that they really regret. And again, it's why the Denver stuff feels like such a story. Nikola Jokic does have an opt-out at the end of this season. He's certainly not going to opt in, right? He's either going to extend or not, so we'll know what that layout is. Now, this league, having really kind of been muddied up by all this salary stuff, nobody hits free agency anymore. So, really, I don't know. I assume Jokic will just sign the extension. And this is the stuff that I do find a little bit funny. People like Nikola Jokic have been kind of applauded for not caring. And, well, if LeBron's the bad guy, because LeBron cares about winning and would never sit by as something like this happens in his prime, right? You're telling me Nikola Jokic is the example that we should follow. Sat here, saddled with incompetence, watching his prime waste away. Like, that's what we want our players to strive for. For Denver fans, honestly, shouldn't even they be annoyed? Hey, Jokic, stop saying this doesn't involve you. It sure does. Figure this out.
Yeah.
Tell them, hey, keep Watson or I'm going to leave. We can't do the second apron. You can. I don't. Yes, you can. Or I'm going to leave. Right? So,
yeah, it's like we want the best of the players to be like, oh, like let the team do the things. So like if the best players are going to be the best players, they almost need to be a little bit of an a-hole. Like, this isn't working. We got to fix this. Right? I want to put ourselves, or the team and the franchise, in a spot to win. This is what we need to do. Like, I need another shooter. Like, and it obviously comes down with coaching changes, the type of offense. This isn't working. We need to change this. You want to retain me and retain my services. We need to improve something, or I'm just going to leave. So I know some fans want players to be like, oh, GM LeBron, oh, this, that, or that. It's like, he's trying to do things to win. And if other players took that mentality, you'd have more championships and you'd have more deep conference runs.
The setup here for Denver is they wait the extension news, and it'll probably come, and then that's that. It would be, now this is a little petty of me, but I don't really care. It would be very funny if Jokic actually plans on like hitting the block, and the Lakers, who would then be the immediate connection, have backed themselves out of it because they overpaid for Walker Kessler. We'll be right back.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
All right, guys, here on SportsGrid on a Wednesday night. Live updates on the baseball board, Tom. A shootout all of a sudden in Tampa and Toronto. What is going on in that AL East battle?
Max Scherzer started for the Blue Jays. So that's where things are at with him, 7 earned runs. And Drew Rasmussen, who has been legit great for the Rays, he also got blown up to the tune of 7 hits and 5 earned runs. So that game goes way over. We're at 12 runs already. We're only in the bottom of the 5th. That live total for that one is up to, what are we looking at? 14.5 right now, 7-5 in the bottom of the 5th for the Rays. We got home runs. We got Mariners up 4-0, Athletics up 2-0. We got runs aplenty across the board so far.
Yeah, that is a wild scoreline, man. This Toronto offense is waking up a little bit. They scored a ton of runs yesterday. They battled back here a little bit in this game, so we'll keep our eyes on that. Yanks are up 3-2 on Baltimore. Philly up 4-1. What did you look into this Phillies Marlins game? I didn't bet it myself, but I'm just I was a little surprised when I saw the Aaron Nola price against Sandy Alcantara. He was about minus 130-ish. Yeah, but I thought minus 130 was more expensive than I thought Aaron Nola would be against Sandy Alcantara. And I didn't know if the answer to that then was the Phillies are much better than the Marlins, or Aaron Nola's pitching a little bit better of recent.
He is pitching a little bit better of recent. There's no doubt about it. Tonight he went 7, 8 strikeouts, only 1 earned run. Overall in the year, he's terrible. Yes. Sandy, did what he normally does. Like, he gave you the 6 innings. Like, it is technically a quality start. He only gave up 3 earned runs over 6. He only had 1 strikeout. I don't know if people are just low on the Marlins and they think that their offense is slipping, but I had no interest in backing Nola, even though it was a decent price for the Phillies. And just looking at the series, seeing what we got, minus 225 the other day, minus 250, whatever it was when Chris Sanchez was on the mound, and compared to where we get Nola, I have no interest in backing Nola, even at decent prices. I'd rather fade him than back him in late juice.
Yeah, I not a game that I played, but I thought it was an interesting price, kind of. St. Louis is up 2-0 on Cincinnati. No run support here for Chase Burns. I can't say I'm thrilled with just 5 innings of 2-run baseball, but I'm not, could have been better. It's not all on him. a great start from Seattle, 4-0. They jumped all over the Brewers. You know, they're on pace to win this game 36-0. So this could be their day here, Tom.
Yeah, and the Mariners need all the help they could possibly get at this point. Getting to Dustin May, who again has been solid, and I still don't think it was the move that the Brewers needed to make at the deadline. I know there wasn't some high-priced hitter out there on the market, so you kind of got to get what you can get and try and improve a great pitching staff to begin with. But, you know, the Mariners, Kev, when it comes to what they're looking at, like, the division is still up for grabs. It's not like the Astros have been running away with things. They've actually fallen back down to earth, losing to the Angels over the past few days. The Rangers are just the epitome of a 500 team. I'm not saying the Mariners are good, because I don't think that they are, but we've seen some crazier things. Cleveland, when they come back from 15 games last year, whatever, it was 10 games last year, and when they ended up winning the division, the Mariners could win the division. They're not good, but they could do it.
Yes, they could. They're not a team I want to back. So I kind of put it to you in the National League, the idea of there's a big three, right? Through the odds in the American League, you could argue there is as well. It's just they're all in the same division, the Rays, the Yankees, and the Red Sox. How surprised would you be if the American League was represented by someone other than those three teams?
Stunned. Absolutely stunned. The Cleveland's not good enough. The Twins are terrible. The White Sox are a super fun season for the White Sox. They're not actually a contender. And whoever comes out of the AL West, I have zero faith in. Hunter Brown is great for the Astros, but after him, what are we looking at? If an opposing pitching staff can work around your Don, are we truly afraid of that lineup? Are we really worried about the Rangers? And this is just the Rangers. If they get to the postseason, could you make the argument that DeGrom and Eovaldi is a pretty good 1-2 to have? Sure, but are we going to get there with them healthy? Like, there's no faith in anyone in any of the other two divisions. Though the AL champion will come from one of the three in the AL East.
The trade-off and the way the bracket works is the Rays are going to be the best team with the 1 seed, okay? Then the Yankees and the Red Sox, things can change. I know that. I know how this sport is. It's very likely the Yankees and Red Sox will be the 4 and 5. What that means is one of the trio is guaranteed a spot in the ALCS. The counter to that is they can't play one another. Right? So if we compare it to, and I'm not like the big three in the National League, I think we would also be pretty stunned if it wasn't a head-to-head in some combination of Brewers, Braves, Dodgers. We quite literally cannot get, unless things change drastically, anything other than just one of the Yankees, Red Sox, or Rays in that ALCS, which is a very interesting setup right now, Tom.
If I remember last year, the opening of the postseason, didn't you make the bet for AL
East to win the World Series?
Represents, yes, that's what it was. And that's what we're looking at, because and this, you could apply this to any sport, really, because sports books offer these, I don't know, you want to call them exotics? You want to call, they offer these unique bets once playoff starts, like division to represent, division to win, and just realizing that structurally the path for a team is guaranteed to go or guaranteed not to go. We know we will get an AL East team in the ALCS. That is a guarantee.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to update you on this live board. It's in-game live on SportsGrid.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Today, the Houston Texans lost Jaden Higgins for the season. Higgins was almost a first-round draft pick 34 overall in last year's NFL draft. He had a really solid rookie year. He didn't light the world on fire, but he was tied for the team lead in touchdowns at 6, and there's real optimism for a sophomore bounce back. There's a lot of people, Tom, and, you know, of course, you know, we've mentioned it, you know, many times, Tom, deep into that fantasy community, who are going to start to get ready for their drafts, but also season-long player props, week 1 props. There's a few different angles here. So what was your immediate reaction to the unfortunate news that Jaden Higgins is going to be done for the season?
This could be a really bad offense. And we know how good the defense for the Texans can be. CJ Stroud was bad last year. The offensive line for the Texans is terrible. And when you deplete what was already a pretty thin wide receiver room to begin with, the bottom for the Texans offense, the range of outcomes, the bottom portion of it is really bad because David Montgomery is fine. Woody Marks is fine. Nico Collins is great. Jaden Higgins now done for the year. It's coming down to Xavier Hutchinson. Dell, who's working his way back from, what was it, the ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus injury from over a year ago. Jalen Knoll, who is still dealing with injury issues. They have Dalton Schultz. They brought in Foster Moreau. We could be looking at a really bad offense. It could have a great defense, the Texans, but a bad offensive line playing in games that they're playing from behind because they can't keep up in scoring even though the defense is good. I'm not sure what we're going to get from them.
So Houston are one of the teams I'm high on coming into the season. I don't have to sell anybody on the defense. I think the offense can be much better. Last year, they punted on offensive line. It's an insane decision to make with a year 3 quarterback, but it's the one they made. And we saw the results. They were awful on that side of the ball. They brought in 4 new offensive linemen, plus drafted another in round 1. It's going to be better. I'm not sitting here saying, I got a top 7 offensive line. It's going to be a better offensive line. Sure. You then think, okay, the running game was pathetic. David Montgomery is not Jahmyr Gibbs. David Montgomery is an upgrade. Okay. That excites me. Nico Collins, we know who he is. One of the other items was these 2 young Cyclones. It was a very interesting move, but they drafted Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, both as top 80 draft choices from Iowa State. And I think that Higgins injury immediately now, to your point, Tom, makes the receiver room feel very... because he needed to be the 2.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have Tank Dell, Jalen Noel, right? And they didn't really bring anybody else in to be that number 2. The main thing, though, is what will C.J. Stroud be? C.J. Stroud was actually good his first 2 years, okay? And he was certainly bad last season. I don't know where I land on Stroud. I think he could be much better. I think he could surprise people this year. I do. I'm not dying to bet that, right? When I think about AFC outright markets, I'm not dying to back Stroud. I'm tempted by it. The quarterback level, right? I think a lot of people for years would just step up. They'd bet Mahomes, they'd bet Josh, they'd bet Burrow, they'd bet Lamar. Last year it was Darnold. A lot of people don't think a lot about Jalen Hurts. So a lot of people don't think a lot about Brock Purdy, who's been to a Super Bowl, right? So Stroud could be there. The thing with the Texans that really I don't like, and I want to get your thoughts on this after the break, Tom, is they brought back Nick Caley, the offensive coordinator, and I thought he was awful last season.
Mm-hmm.
There are very simple tests I think you ask an offensive head coach to figure out. 3rd and 1, bad offensive line, bad running back, don't run it up the middle. Oh my gosh, he ran it up the middle. Oh, sweet, they're going to go for it. Surely he's not going to run. Oh my gosh, he ran it up the middle again. And then it was a turnover on downs. Is there any reason for optimism with Houston? Sounds like Tom doesn't think so. What about Collins specifically? We'll talk about that and his thoughts on C.J. Stroud next.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Talking Texans here, Kevin Walsh, Tom Vecchio. So, Tom, give me your thoughts on C.J. Stroud, the offensive coordinator, and maybe how you think this all kind of comes together then.
I think it's very uninspiring. I do. And there's nothing that excites me, right? Because the offensive line being so bad, CJ Stroud struggling individually, and some of the struggles obviously were not his fault, were tied directly to the offensive line. But some of those struggles, when you didn't make splashing moves to improve any of those things, and now we have the injury, that's where I see the floor of the Texans offense being really low. They could be in the top 3 of the league when it comes to defense, but they also could average 17 points a game. And I'm saying, where is the offensive upside that we're going to be getting from them that's going to allow them to go toe-to-toe? Because do they have a defense that could shut down basically any offense? Sure, but if their defense slips just a little bit and 1 or 2 injuries pile up, that's where we're going to see their offense need to pick up the slack, and I just don't know if they have the pieces to do so. So there's nothing exciting to me about the Texans, especially at that price.
All right, so allow me to ask you a question. What do you think is more likely? The offense is top half of the league, 16 or better, or the defense falls out of the top 7?
The defense.
See, I disagree.
Okay.
I'd be stunned. Defenses can be very, random's not the right word, but hot or cold, right? Year to year, we have seen that. Yeah.
It's a little fluky sometimes, and sometimes it's just the natural variance of regressing to the mean of what they produced last year or over the last 3 years, and they're just going to regress at some point.
It's just that defense doesn't have a single reason really to regress, right? Like, Will Anderson is one of the 3 best defensive players in football, right? And he's paired with Danielle Hunter, who's just also an absolute monster, and it's remarkable, how talented they are on that side of the football. The secondary is fantastic. They've been this good with DeMeco Ryans very, very consistently. We've seen that. But it's also interesting, I think, for you to say that, Tom, because you're not saying they're going to be outside of the top 7. You're really low on then Stroud and maybe. So let me ask you this, and let's just, from a fantasy perspective, is Nico Collins a stay away, or is he shown enough to you to be able to produce inside this system?
Well, Nico Collins in his own right is always going to be an awesome option. And this should even further, excitement in him, just because, it's like, get the ball to your best player. It's like sometimes the offensive game plan just be that simple. Get the ball to your best player. And him maintaining a 30+% target share is always going to be exciting. Now, can we say that his touchdown equity is going to be lower just because the offense is going to be on the wrong side of variance and the wrong side of offensive efficiency, that the red zone chances are going to be decreased just because the defenses can maybe sell out and bracket coverage Nico Collins? Sometimes they're like, hey, if we cover him, they're not going to be able to pick up first downs, and therefore we just win the game. So Nico Collins will get there in volume alone in terms of yards and receptions. The touchdown equity on him, I think, is going to be lower.
Yeah, he did only have the 6 touchdowns last year, so I'm wondering if some of that positive regression. He had 7 the year prior, Tom, and playing only 12 games, right? Yeah. So I could see Nico Collins kind of swinging around a little bit. Let me put Nico Collins. Like, here's one of the I'm sure you're seeing some of this chatter early season out of Atlanta. Tua looks awful. And Penix isn't ready yet. I think there's a chance that Penix could legitimately be exciting for Atlanta. But he just may never be a healthy football player. How do you look at Nico Collins compared to Drake London, 2 guys going very close to one another in these drafts?
I would say it's somewhat similar, where, you can't make the argument of saying, hey, get the ball to your best player, because it's not Drake London for the Falcons. We obviously know it's Bijan Robinson. At the backfield, it's also Kyle Pitts. So the target equity that Nico Collins has would take a priority over Drake London just because, hey, there are other mouths to feed in that offense. And Drake London doesn't have to do it all by himself. Bijan can help carry that offense and kind of insulate some of the mistakes that Tua makes or is just ineffectiveness, because we can have easy dump downs to him, just normal running game stuff, which I'd be higher on the Falcons run game, easy completions to Kyle Pitts. And then just the offense itself, Tua doesn't have to be amazing, and a rising tide lifts all ships. So Drake London can be fine and kind of get moved along with the rest of the offense. So I would say, just objectively, I would buy into the upside that the offense has with the Falcons, knowing that the floor for the Falcons is also very low. Tua does not look good. If Tua is the same quarterback he was over the past few years, he could be terrible. And if Penix just isn't ready to play yet, then we're just hung out to dry, and Drake London has nowhere to go, and he's a terrible pick at his ADP.
I think it's a floor versus ceiling. The Nico Collins now has a much higher floor to me because it's the same system. His number 2 receiver just got hurt. That's right. Like, that's really what it is. Drake London's ceiling it's not that Drake London's ceiling is, because he has the Bijan competition, right? The ceiling is higher for Drake London because Drake London might just be way better at football than people realize.
Yes.
Like, I'm open to the world that Drake London is one of the 7 best receivers in the league. And that might not sound super high. So I don't know, do I need to maybe make that higher? He's not better than Puka, Chase, Justin.
JSN.
Yeah, but no one would have said that. Okay, how about this? Drake London is talented enough that I could see him having a tick below the JSN season. And I don't mean like this year. I mean based on his capabilities. If that is, like, I think that's fair to say. Like, I really believe that what we've seen from like Chase, Jefferson, and Jamar puts them in a different category. I understand Justin doesn't go with those guys. That's a Minnesota thing versus what have you done for me lately thing, which is also probably why I draft Justin Jefferson, whatever. I think Drake London is super, super talented. But
I do too.
I could see myself taking Nico over him. Like, it depends on setting, I guess, right? Who you're drafting against, the format you're drafting in.
Yeah, I would say JSN, Puka, Jamar, Justin Jefferson, Lamb, St. Brown, and I can make the case for London to be right there, right after that. And you want to throw in Pickens in that mix. You want to throw in, that's where the Nico tier is getting there. AJ Brown, Zay Flowers.
The wide receiver uncertainty, again, for people who are getting ready for their fantasy football drafts, there's this big drop off, right? There's really the big 2 in Chase and Puka. Mm-hmm. Then you get JSN and Amon-Ra. Then you get Lamb and Jefferson. And then there's a gap until you get AJ Brown, Drake London, Nico Collins, maybe Pickens. Right? Olave is going to be moving up a lot due to the Tyson injury. Something I know that you've been following very closely. Mm-hmm. Is Olave in consideration if I were to say it against London and Collins?
Oh, yeah. Also, Shuck was legit good at the end of the year. And if you want to buy into Kellen Moore, like, we can get some offense there.
I like Kellen Moore a lot more than I like Tyler Shuck. I ask people to go back and look at Tyler Shuck was not as good as some of the numbers. I guess from a fantasy perspective, who cares? 300 yards is 300 yards, even if it's against the Jets efficiently.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Right here on a Wednesday night on SportsGrid. Baltimore ties it up at the bottom of the sixth. 3-3 now against the New York Yankees. The Reds stole the lead off St. Louis. Sal Stewart went deep for 3. What else are you seeing out here on the baseball board, Tom?
A little bit of despair because I traded away Sal Stewart in a keeper league, but that's neither here nor there.
You're so nuts.
Hey, I got Mizurowski. I got Mizurowski, and now I have Crochet Scuba Mizurowski as keepers next year. So I am loaded up for next season. I am ready for spring training, even though we're not going to have it.
But that Sal Stewart home run put a little bit of dent in your confidence. You got Jacob Mizurowski. When was that trade?
A couple weeks ago.
I would like the full trade details. I would like the full trade.
I got Josh Naylor and Mizurowski for Sal Stewart.
I'm not following that at all.
I traded away Sal Stewart for Jacob Mizurowski and Jalen and Josh Naylor, the first baseman on the Mariners.
And why was that?
How did that come to fruition? Someone. Are you asking how did that come to fruition, that trade?
Okay. If I don't know what I'm talking about, that's fine. That seems like an insane trade. Jacob Mizurowski is the favorite to win the Cy Young. You gave up Sal Stewart.
Right, but it obviously takes into account that the future year keeper value and the position at this team that my friend that made the trade with me, he is in to win the championship. He needs hitting. He doesn't need pitching. So he can forego Mizurowski and take on Sal Stewart. That's going to provide an immediate boost for his hitting categories.
I need as many people who can text me as possible to tell me if I'm crazy or if what I'm hearing is crazy, okay? Because you just said to me a team in win now mode traded away Jacob Mizurowski.
Right, but when you're looking at the context of the team dynamic, he may be struggling in hitting categories, so he needs to bolster the hitting as he goes into the fantasy playoffs.
Then get back Yordan Alvarez. He got back Sal Stewart?
Yeah, but I mean, Sal Stewart's going to win NL Rookie of the Year, and obviously it's not like Yordan is going to be available for the team that has Yordan is obviously never going to give up Yordan.
Well, if I put Jacob Mizurowski on the block, he might.
Well, listen, I was presented with the offer. I snapped snap clicked yes because I'm knowing that I can keep Mizorowski in the 20 whatever round next year, along with having Skubal and Crochet. Kevin, I am moving and grooving for next year's fantasy baseball season, even though we're not going to have it.
Okay, see, like I thought you were going to be like, no, what you're not understanding is Mizorowski's a keeper in like the minus 600 round. I lose picks. And Sal Stewart, he actually gains 400 picks for keeping it. What are you talking about, man?
Yeah,
like, what is happening right now?
I know. So this is, I mean, I'll keep Miz in the 18th round next year. Meanwhile, he's going to go in the first. I fleeced him. This is all good for Tom. Okay. At least, appreciate your first time admitting that was. Were you shocked when it was offered to you? Oh, yeah. And listen, I
how'd you get Naylor in the deal?
I don't care about Josh Naylor. I'm not going to.
No, you were. You sent Naylor out.
No, I got Naylor in because of first baseman for first baseman. Well, I didn't make the offer. Someone presented me with the offer, and I snapped the decision and said yes because I love South Stewart.
Was he up against the second apron with Josh Naylor?
I don't know.
Doesn't make any sense, dude.
I don't know what it was, but I saw this and I said, listen, I drafted Sal Stewart this year in the 9th round. I was like, I could keep him next year in the 7th, but the differential between Sal Stewart in the 7th, who I think is great and is going to win NL Rookie of the Year, versus Miz in the 18th, you have to take that. So I'll do that deal every day and twice on Sundays.
Right. And then what I'm still trying to follow, and I'd like to know if you, a contending team.
I'm not a contending team.
Right. But one that is got rid of Jacob Mizorowski, one of the highest scoring pitchers in fantasy baseball.
Correct, because he believes he has enough to win matchups with Hunter Brown and Chapman and Sandy and Trevor Rogers and Kyle Harrison and Sonny Gray and Jesus Luzardo and Dean Creamer. He believes he has enough pitching, but needed to solidify the hitting and needed that power because he lost Shea Langoliers. He needed more, boost in the bats rather than the pitching. He can tread water with the pitching, and it was a swing for the fences type of move, no pun intended, because he needed more offense.
Is there something about I cannot believe. Speak to me about how valuable Sal Stewart is in the format you play in.
He would have been, if I wanted to keep him next year, I would have had to keep him in the 7th. I drafted him in the 9th this year. We have a 2-round.
Where is Sal Stewart going in next year's fantasy baseball landscape in the redraft league?
I would say top 7
I'm asking you.
Top 5. I would say 5th round or so, given where he is in the offense that he put up. He's tied for the league lead or one off of the league in RBIs. So if we could project him for that next year, he can cut down the strikeout rate playing in that park. A top 5 round pick for him would be reasonable. 5th or 6th round, and I would have to keep him in the 7th. So then I would have to make the determination: is that ADP differential worthy of me keeping him?
Listen, Tom, I don't care about you keeping Sal Stewart. What I care about is a contending team got rid of a 1st round value, right?
Yeah.
Which is how you win with the best players, for a 5th round value. That sounds bananas.
It is. And sometimes I gotta take advantage of the deficiencies of my league mates, right? And if that's one of them,
sounds like Junior Caminero for Jacob Mizorowski maybe would have been a little more right. But that's not what happened.
No.
Instead, you got Mizorowski for Sal Stewart. Who'd you trade with? What's his name?
This guy Sam. I've only met him like once.
Sam.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS, but then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
We are back here on In-Game Live, where I have put multiple phone calls in to join Tom's Keeper Fantasy Baseball League. I just still really don't understand the things I heard. Win now, trade the Cy Young. Yup. That's what happened. Congrats. But hey, you know what? Then again, who's laughing now? Sal Stewart, 3-run shot. He fleeced you. And not enough people are saying it.
And you know what? You know, egg on my face, but there's not even a season next year, so I can't even reap the rewards of this trade. So
yeah, honestly dominated you, except for the fact that he made his team worse, and he's trying to win now. What do you have, Tom, rest of the night? Were you betting anything in the late baseball slate here? All these Dodger games that are usually at 10-10 starts, they're 8:40 starts at Coors.
I have nothing in this game. It's super tough to extract value on the Dodgers. I guess you just throw the run line in and close your eyes. And I guess going to Coors is exactly what they needed to get the offense going. But I have nothing in either of these late games. Tomorrow we get the baseball day started early. We'll also have some preseason tomorrow that you and I will be on for. We'll be getting into that, but nothing on the late MLB slate for me tonight.
I am involved with your late night game between Golden State and Minnesota. This is a 10 p.m. tip here between the two best teams record-wise in the W. The Lynx are a 2.5-point favorite. I played over at 163.5. Did not get the best of this number, down to 161.5 here. But I do think with this low total, the expectation is defense. I think it'll surprise a little bit here. I think the Lynx are due for a higher scoring game. They've been playing some low scoring affairs. And I think I like buying low off of some of the low Golden State games. Like they just played Dallas 78-70, didn't crack 150. So I like my chances here tonight. I'm playing that towards the over. Washington is going to take a double-digit lead most likely into the fourth quarter on a tempo team who are just in total free fall and honestly tanking. No Sykes, no Mabry. On the second leg of a back-to-back, they shouldn't play. This is a team who loses all the time. They are closing in and really have separated. They have the second worst point differential. They've lost 11 in a row. This will be 12 in a row. They're closing in on the Connecticut Sun for the second worst record So we'll see where that lands. The one other piece of news I did want to mention tonight, and Tom's right, tomorrow the preseason is back. Week 2, we're going to get the Texans, the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Niners. But we had Vita Vea with a contract extension with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom. Did that surprise you in any way? How good is it for Tampa Bay to get Vita Vea back?
I don't want to say it's crucial, but it's what they needed to do. And it doesn't surprise me at all. It's like, he requests a trade, only 2 things are going to happen. He's going to get a contract extension or they're going to trade him. And you get the contract extension and, he'll show up to camp tomorrow. We'll get the tweet. We'll see the clip of him walking on the field or whatever, and things will be back to normal. Great that they paid him. What are they doing with Baker? You solve one problem. Not paying Baker is a mistake because, seeing what the options are out there at quarterback, if they're not willing to pay Baker, what are they doing? Because they're not in a spot to tank. They're not tanking for a top draft pick. They're in a winnable division. If we woke up 6 months from now or 5 months from now, whatever it is, and so the Bucs win the division, no one's going to be surprised. That's a winnable division. Pay your quarterback because you have nothing else, lined up to succeed him at this point.
So I like Baker. And I think Baker might have a great season. And if he does, I think they're going to hope to get a deal done. I also think that Baker keeps playing through injuries. And it keeps hurting his perception. It happened in Cleveland, and it's now happening. It happened last year in Tampa Bay. And I don't want to use it as a knock against him, but it is what keeps happening, right? And the conversation would, if he just didn't play through the injuries, his numbers would probably look better, but we might talk about him as a more injury-prone player. The one thing I will say with Tampa, Tom, is you may not need to be awful to get a quarterback of the future next year. If as many guys come out as people will think, it'll be really fun to follow. And it'll be fun to follow some NFL tomorrow. Tom and I will be back here with Texans Raiders on In Game Live on SportsGrid. We'll see you then.
It's kind of cut and dry that the Dodgers are going to win it, which is not a guarantee. This is not taxes and death, so to speak. The Dodgers can lose games. We've seen it. They had a long losing streak. So the Dodgers could maybe fall off. You never know. Now, I do expect them to make the playoffs, and I expect them to win the division, and I expect them to win the NLDS. But then anything after that, I think is suspect.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Miami going to the Big Ten is massive. It gives the university, in my opinion, it's a strong university. It's AAU. It's got championship pedigree. And I think it would have a massive recruiting advantage, to be candid, if it were to join the Big Ten. And I think that's making some of the bigger players in that conference a little nervous.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
What Michigan have to play versus Penn State is insane. Like, instead of Big Ten teams worrying about SEC and all that, like, Michigan fans should not be happy about what Matt Campbell gets to walk into. James Franklin's got to be kicking himself. Penn State do not play Oregon, Indiana, or Ohio State. They avoided the entire Big Three of the it's incredible.
In Game Live, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The show is